Okay, we are finally live. Hey, everybody. I am excited to be with you here tonight. I've got my dear friend, Denise Swafford, and we're going to be talking about getting yourself visible and getting prepared to be visible and kind of like all the lowdown, deep and dirty about getting interviews, getting speaking engagements, getting out there, and showing up on podcasts and TV interviews and doing the things. And I'm going to dare say it's probably not what you're thinking.
It's a little different than your normal message, Haley.
It is, right? Well, so here's the thing. We were talking before we got on, because I have my group that's got Women's Entrepreneur Network has 74-ish thousand members in it, and my leadership girl pages, and all these other places. And there's some things that you really need to be doing before you start getting super visible, because you've got to have something that you're doing with it, and you've got to have a purpose and a message and an end game in mind. Ask me how I know, because I didn't always have it, and I wasted a lot of opportunities. Yeah, you too, right?
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then there's also certain etiquette that you need to follow if you're interviewed by somebody, even if it's pay to play. And yes, pay to play is a viable alternative. So let's start digging in. So Denise, tell me a little bit about what it is that you do.
So what I do is help women, specifically small business women, gain instant credibility and massive visibility. And I really do that through teaching them how to get interviewed, how to be properly interviewed, how to show up in the right places to be interviewed, don't just be interviewed by anyone, and make sure the big piece, I think, of what I teach and I show women how to do is what is done with that interview and how important the back end of what you do to distribute that is. So
yes, because a lot of times I see this kind of misconception. Somebody will come on, they'll get interviewed with me, they're like, oh, look, I got access to your audience, great, I'm good, I'm done. And that's just the beginning. If you're trying to get massive visibility, it's like writing a book. You write a book, you publish it, and you're not done the second it's published.
Right.
It's just the very, very, very beginning of what you need to do. And one of the lessons that took me a long time to learn, that we're here to try to help you short circuit just a little bit, is that you can actually take a little bit of visibility and keep leveraging that to generate a whole ton of visibility and get massive visibility opportunities by just getting a little bit at a time and really leveraging what you're doing.
Yes, yes, and yes. All of the above. A little at a time instead of, rolling out to the masses before you're really ready. That's a big thing. But also just taking that one piece of content and using it to its fullest potential.
What does that mean exactly in your mind? Leveraging that one interview to its fullest potential, or that one piece of content to its fullest potential?
So to me, that really means how do you use it every way possible? And so one of the things that I saw, a little bit of background. So how Haley and I know each other is I used to do what she did and we became friends. So I've changed. I leave now the marketing to her and I do the PR. So there you go.
And they are kind of two different things, guys.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people really don't get, right? And so I'm going to take that one, and we can talk about that too, but I'm going to take that one interview and I'm going to make sure that it's distributed properly, that it's distributed in the right places, that whoever, so if Haley does this interview with me, my questions for Haley ahead of time is, and her questions for me as well, right? Where is it going to be broadcast? Who are your followers? Like, I want to know the details, because a lot of times I think we get stuck in this going and being interviewed, and it becomes more of the vanity of it, right? Oh, I was featured on this podcast. I was featured on the show. And while sometimes we need to build our confidence up, and it's okay to do that, we really miss the point if we're not making sure we're being strategic with it. And that strategy is, I want to know before I'm interviewed, who is your ideal, not who's your ideal client, who is watching your show, who's listening to your broadcast, what do those analytics look like? Because I don't want to go show up somewhere. I mean, my business is primarily for women like Haley's. And so I don't want to go show up where it's a male dominant environment, because it doesn't really do anything for my business. Now I'm like Haley, I pulled a little something out of Haley's playbook where I'm for women and a few good men, but the men I feature are really geared toward women. Like, whatever they do is really geared toward women. And so I'm more strategic with it. How do you show up? What kind of questions are you going to ask me? I'm a very conversational style interviewer. So the more you talk and the more you open up, we'll do a little 10-minute thing before your interview. And the more you open up to me, the more I'm able to draw out, right? And so the more I'm able to ask questions. And so I really need somebody who can work with me that's able to just talk about things on the fly. And I try to, keep it very pointed toward whatever the goal is. But it's really, the point for me is what we do behind the scenes and how we distribute that content, because that one piece of content is really going to be used over and over and over can be used in different facets in different areas. But the thing I always ask people when I start talking to them is, social media teaches us to do what? Build ourselves up as an expert. Haley is amazing at that. And I think it is viable. I think there's a place for that. But what we miss a lot of times is that someone else needs to tell our story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let somebody else show up and ask you the questions and set you up as the expert. And that one piece of content gets used over and over and over. Google is my big thing, right? So on the backside, Google goes, man, every time somebody talks about you, it picks up organically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, so somebody's talking about this person. And Google's smart. It can tell if you're paying somebody to sit there and just post the same article on 10 different web pages, because people do that. But this is really, really going deep and growing that piece of content to be used here, and then be used here, and then be used here. And how can you repurpose it a little bit? There's so much to this that could go on. So
yeah, reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. But seriously, I mean, that's one of the things that we forget when we create these pieces of media. We do these interviews. We don't necessarily, and I know that I have not always done this, and my bad. But as Velma is posting, one interview becomes a blog post, social media post, perhaps transcribing the content, sound bites from the interview. It gets shared onto your LinkedIn multiple times. It gets shared onto your Twitter multiple times. I think a lot of times we're like, oh, well, I can only share this interview once, and then my audience doesn't want to see it again. We forget that people don't necessarily see all of our content the first time.
Well, it's, the thing that for me, and Haley, you might be like this too, but I noticed for me, and then for the women that I feature, right? So it is much easier if I ask you the questions and you give me the answers. Then, I tell women, go break that down. Every one of those questions is a segment for you to post on your social media and use, like you said, over and over and over. Haley, how often can you run something on your social media before it comes redundant? I mean, you're the pro at this, right?
All the damn time.
All the time, right? Every 30 days, I could recycle that. Every 45 days, I could recycle that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's usable, and it's so much. What people miss with this is how much content is in that one video.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't break it down and go break it into bite-sized pieces. Hey, that's a 1 minute thing for a reel on Insta. That could go over here on TikTok, And what I was watching, and I know you see it too, and when I was on the marketing side, I had this gap, and I always have this gap with my clients because no matter how great a job you do running ads, no matter how great a job you do teaching what we did or what you do now, there's always this, I need more exposure, I need more exposure, I need more exposure. But if you got that one or two really awesome interviews and you break that down, you've got content to run for days and weeks and months.
Mm-hmm. And we forget that we have all of that content and that we can reuse it. I mean, it's like writing a book. Here, another perfect example. We write a book, we set it out the door, and I've had this conversation with a lot of clients, and I'm like, okay, now what are you doing with that book? I don't know. I've published it. I got it to Amazon #1 international bestseller. Okay, I'm done.
No,
that's just the beginning.
No, then it becomes your calling card, and you give it away, and you sign. Like you do book signings, and you do all of the things because you keep using that over and over and over until when? And probably until you write the next book, till you do the next interview. It's just one of those things that I kept seeing this gap. People always going, no matter how great their ads were running, no matter how visible they were, they wanted, they still were asking me for more visibility. And so what I knew naturally to do was then go, okay, you've got a great website, you've got a great offer, you've got great things. Here's what you do next. You get on local TV and radio. Local TV and radio. You think, well, people don't listen to radio anymore? Give me a break. Why do radio stations still exist?
Right.
And yes, people have a lot of places they can go to get information and listen to music and all of those things now. But why not start in your own backyard? Because you know what I tell people? You know how to get on local TV and radio? Have a really good press release and walk in the door. That's it. That's all you literally have to do. Those local stations are usually hungry for content, right? They're looking for those feature stories. Now with COVID, maybe you got to pick up the phone and call. Maybe you got to call a few times to get to the right person. You want to talk to the station manager first, and bam, who is the station manager? I need to talk to that person. Talk to them, find out, hey, I am this person. This is what I do. Are you who I need to talk to, or is it someone else?
Right.
And that's, honestly, how you get it done. And I did that years and years ago. I've owned several businesses, but I started out there and it was like I forgot it. So, it's like, okay, God, thank you for bringing that back. But I forgot that that's how I started. I started with articles in my small town newspaper.
Right.
Paying for the ad back in the day when that was still viable and it really still got you a lot of traction. I made sure I showed up there consistently. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's an important too.
Right.
Consistency.
And I'm big on social media, so y'all don't take this the wrong way, okay? I'm big about it. But what I'm even bigger about these days, especially with the fact we're losing a lot of our close connections because of COVID, because of all this, is if like my state's still wide open, like we can go back to meeting in person, all that. Get in the face of local people, right? Build small, grow out, let the word of mouth will travel for you. That's what, when I speak, people are like, why do you not speak globally? And I'm like, I don't have to. I have enough places to speak as much as I want to in my own backyard. All I have to do is let people know I'm for hire. And how do I do that? Yeah. Go to local networking events and introduce yourself as a speaker, whatever it is you do. That's how I started speaking. I would speak for 5 minutes or 5 hours. I don't care. Especially if it's within 2 or 3 hours, less than 3 hours from my house, all day long.
Yeah. Well, and that's important, right?
And I
And
think that's the other
sometimes,
thing is we forget that too.
yeah, we're forgetting the fact that we've got all this stuff in front of us. And the people that are most likely and the fastest to build relationships with us are those that are in front of us,
Mhm.
not, in Taiwan or Japan or South Korea, although you might get one.
Mhm.
But the fastest way you're going to get to know people, the fastest way you're going to get PR, the fastest way you're going to get places, if you're the hometown girl, people love to know more about, people from where you're at.
Mhm.
And we leave all of these opportunities on the table because we don't want to get out from behind our desks and go talk to people.
Well, and those people are when they're from your area, they are your
Hmm.
biggest fans. Like, and I get it. People are like, oh, well, those women are, they got their little clique there. I'm like, no, I
Hmm.
don't feel that way. I'm everybody's biggest fan. I'm like, girl, I want you to win. I mean, but I have been like, I could walk in somewhere. I did this just a couple weeks ago. A lady I've known forever runs a big event center. She's over an association. I just walked in and I said, I just wanted you to know what I'm doing now.
Hmm.
And she was like, I meet with the board in 2 weeks. We will be on your show.
Hmm.
Okay. You want to be on the TV show? She's like, yes. I mean, like, I didn't have to ask. She was asking me, where do I get your information so I can present it to my board? I didn't have
Hmm.
to even ask. And I was like, because why? Because the know, like, and trust factor went out the window years ago because I met her and I've built this relationship with her. And I'm not starting over with new people every single day when I go local. And don't get me
Hmm.
wrong, you guys, I'm big on Clubhouse, huge about it. Part of the reason I'm huge about it is because I can have a conversation with you. And what I'm noticing is that no like and trust factor builds so much faster than if I sit behind a screen all the time. And I do still sit behind a screen and I still connect with my audience that's there, but I built this whole entire other audience
Hmm.
that I actually get to have a conversation with.
Yep. So let's dish about paid speaking opportunities.
Oh, all day, every day. And here's why. When you pay somebody, you can ask them, what am I paying you to do? Where am I paying you to distribute this content? How are you going to distribute this content? And, you can ask all the questions. Who is your audience? You get to go at it for more of a business than just, like I said earlier, the vanity matrix of, oh, you want to feature me. So if, I meet Susie Joe and Susie Joe's like, hey, I want to feature you on my podcast. And,
Hmm.
and I'm like, what is your fee? And she's like, oh, I don't have one. Then I don't have that.
Hmm.
I just don't have the same, I don't know, to me it's different. I'm not going to ask her a million questions about her audience. I'm not going to expect her, I can't then expect her to distribute it in the places she says. I basically can't expect her to hold up to her end of the deal. So she could just interview me and walk away. And a
Hmm.
lot of people do that. They're like, I'll just put you in front of my audience. Well, okay, if you've got 10,000 people listening to your podcast every day, by all means, just put me in front of your audience.
Right.
Otherwise, I probably want to make sure you're the place I want to show up that day. But
Hmm.
pay to play, it's business then. It's not just this interview. It's now a business transaction. And if you tell me, if you come on my show and I'm like, listen, I'm going to do a write-up for you. I'm going to feature you on my vlog. And then once we make sure that vlog interview goes really, really well, there is the option for me to turn that into a segment on my TV show. But you're paying me for that because, so now you can expect me to do what I say I'll do. You can expect me to make sure that I write that article in a way that I include all of your backlinks and Google picks that up.
Hmm.
So it just becomes a business transaction to me that you can expect someone to do what they think. And the other thing about pay to play is this. Do you realize that's how people who really do this do it? Maybe not the Oprah's because she's so big and so sponsored, But do you not think if Oprah said my fee to go on my show is $100,000, people are going to pay that all day long? Yeah, because she's going to give them not just the visibility, she's going to do what she says she does for that $100,000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yes, you
Yeah.
get me on the soapbox all the time.
Well, and I think that it's important because a lot of times people are like, well, I don't pay for PR. You know, and I'll be honest, I don't pay to go on to a summit with a lot of speakers who don't have the reach that I have.
Right.
You know, if I'm with a bunch of other speakers that have no email list, you know, up to a couple thousand, maybe even 5,000, I'm probably not feeling real inspired to pay to be on that summit because honestly, there's not going to be any real benefit to me. But if I was looking at a summit where every single other speaker has huge lists, or I'm going onto a summit with a keynote speaker that has a huge list, then I'm probably going to be much more inclined to pay to do it.
Right.
Because I know I'm going to get clients out of it.
Right. And, you know, I told people this because, you know, I just switched gears a couple months ago. And I'm not saying, I don't even say don't go on the small ones. But if you're going to go on a small, like a summit that's small, and maybe they don't have that reach, you want to make sure that they do what they say they're going to do, right? When you go be interviewed, just make sure that even if it's a small show, they understand how to make sure they distribute your content in a way that's going to help you build more traction, right? So, and I'm all about this Google thing because Google is so beautiful in the organic sense if you know how to use it.
Well, and having your video on YouTube with all your links or on a website with all the links and everything else. This is called search engine optimization, SEO.
Hello. And the more people that interview you and talk about you, or the more places you use that piece of content, oh my gosh, that search engine goes, wow, instead of being on page 25, maybe they should be on page 5, you know, and you just keep moving up and up and up and up. And yes, the SEO is a huge part of it.
Absolutely.
And that's what you want to make sure when people interview you, they understand how to do that. Mm-hmm. Because you can't do it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you can do it. You can put it on your Facebook and on your Instagram and things like that, but it doesn't have the same weight as if someone else does it for you.
Yep. Good question, Velma. What about giving interviewers your questions? Then all your shows end up being the same.
I don't. Like I said, I'm a conversational style interview. And I'm going to bring out, I've been in business long enough. I know the things that my viewers are looking for. They're looking for a way to connect with you on an emotional level. It's no different than social media, like an emotional level, but a personal level. So we always talk about, are you married? Do you have kids? We talk a little bit about that. And then we go into the business piece and we talk about how you got started, and we tell your story more than we act. And I ask questions that allow you to tell your story. So I already know the story ahead of time, which helps me bring those things out, right?
Yeah. Well, so and the other thing, you know, I'm not a big fan of giving people all of the questions. I mean, you can use them as a starting point, but having all of your interviews come out the same is not necessarily to your benefit, because it's not going to necessarily do as good of a job telling your story in the light and the facets of that particular audience.
Well, and they don't feel authentic either, right? And so what do we, even through TV and radio, we need to come through authentically. And, you know,
especially TV and radio.
Yes. And so if you're too prepped, it can start sounding rehearsed because you've had time to think about it. Or when you have to just kind of answer that question off the cuff, we're going to get this real authentic answer. We're going to see that, oh my gosh, that was such a mistake for me, or whatever. You know, you're going to, your body language is also going to tell a lot, especially if it's, oh, the kitty cat. You know, your body language, your facial expressions are going to tell a lot when you get asked a question, especially if we're videoing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, people want to get to know the real you, just as I have a cat currently trying to walk across my keyboard.
I love Haley's petting zoo.
I don't
My,
hardly
my
miss
pets
them
are
yet.
not. My pets are too big to be a petting zoo. So.
Yeah, your pets are a little bit bigger than mine on average. Although I have one that would rival some of the size of some of yours.
Oh, I bet. Yes, you do. You do have one.
I do.
Mhm.
We have a horse.
Yeah.
Long story. We have a horse.
We have a horse. Long story.
Yep. But it's all good. Yeah. New keyboards, the new newspaper for kitties. Absolutely, right?
Yes.
So,
That is hilarious. That needs to be a post for you, Haley.
true. Yeah, they're going to sit in the middle of whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yep,
Yep.
exactly.
So tell me how people should get in touch with you.
So they can go to deniseswafford.com. And there you will be able to see some of the amazing women I've already featured, like Haley Gray. And you will be able to connect with me there, or you can go to my virtual card, which is denisecard, CARD.com. All my links and my phone number and everything is right there. So those are the two best ways to connect with me.
That's awesome.
That's pretty. It doesn't get, it used to be so complicated. Now it's like, is that really all I have to tell you?
I like it.
Card, I have to tell y'all, this thing has changed my life because all of my links are there. Like my pre-screening call link, everything is right inside that card.
That's
and
good.
and it has a QR code. And if I'm in person, people can scan it, or I can drop the URL in there. And I'm like, they have everything. And I'm like,
Isn't that cool?
I love it.
I love a good piece of technology, let me tell you.
I know you do. I know you do.
That's awesome. So y'all get in touch with Denise. Tell us a little bit about the TV interviews and podcast interviews and everything that you're currently working on for people.
So what I'm currently working on is showcasing women in small business and really just bringing their businesses to the spotlight. And the way it works is I do one interview, right? We do it really specifically. My intent with it is just to have to do one. So I can take that and I can cut it down a little bit for the vlog. But if it goes really well, then those women are the ones I'm asking to be featured on the TV show. Everything. And when I say goes really well, if it's just a really good interview and I really feel like we do a great job of telling your story so that women can resonate with it. So my TV show will actually be coming out on Roku this fall. It's called the Pick TV Network is a new network that picked it up. And I will be on the Women's Chat channel. So that's where it will be seen if you make it through to the TV show. That really I'm just telling women's stories and making sure in return that they really get a lot of traction on the back side and the back end with that video.
That is really cool.
That's it.
That is so cool. Y'all sign up, check her out. She's pretty awesome. I've got one last thing though.
What?
Want me to pull a card?
Oh yeah.
Do you have a preference for which card deck I use?
I don't. You got more than one?
I've got like 4.
Oh my gosh.
I might be a card junkie. So I have the fairy medicine.
Okay.
I have my super attractor. That's not an oracle. These are oracle decks. And then we have the enchanted map and the ever favorite Love Your Inner Goddess.
Yeah, let's do Love Your Inner Goddess. I'm all about it. Hey, look, I have one too, but mine's prayers. It is so pretty. And I come in here every morning and I pull one out, and that's what I pray for that morning.
Isn't that amazing?
I was like, who thinks of these things?
Apparently, lots of people, because they're pretty popular.
Apparently.
Okay, so I'm going to swirl the cards around.
Uh-oh, she's going to swirl them. I'm kind of scared.
Which card do you want, my friend?
The middle. Pick one out of the middle.
Out of the middle? Like right in here?
Right there. That's perfect. Pick it. Let's see my inner goddess today.
See what your inner goddess looks like?
Uh-huh.
I always find that these are just really helpful to remind us of, duh, here.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, she's
Earth
pretty.
goddess.
The Earth Goddess. Oh, wow.
To live the dream, we have to surrender the fantasy. This can be painful. It feels like the end, when in fact it is the beginning. Once the pain passes, there is joy of what we have yearned for coming to life. It may not be as perfect as the fantasy, but it will be real and it can nourish us. We can build our appetite for life with dreams, but we cannot be fed with by them. The soul requires real life experiences to become fully alive, to have experiences and grow. There's a fantasy that wants to become reality for you. Don't let a few gritty moments or human imperfections prevent you from experiencing the joy of heaven on earth.
Oh, boy. Love it. That was so perfect.
Gotcha.
Heaven on earth. Okay. Well, let's go do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I am so grateful to have you here. Thank you for joining me. And I hope you have an awesome night, guys. Take care.
Night, guys.